Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video let's talk about usage of anti-ice in the ATR 72 and ATR 42-600 aircraft. We are approaching Toronto at the moment, and as you can see there is quite a bit of clouds up there, so we are definitely expecting some icing conditions on this one. Now, let's talk about the three different anti- and de-icing systems we have on the airplane, and then we talk about how we are going to use them. We'll start with what we actually have, as this is the prerequisite for everything else. So this is our anti-ice and de-ice panel. We start with the probe heat and windshield heat, which is basically always going to be on. Then we have our anti-icing, which is the stuff we have up here. And then we have the de-icing, which is the panel down here. So that is the stuff that we have available. Now, let's look into what we are going to use when. The normal conditions in flight is basically this, which is everything is out, there is no light illuminated. Now, no light illuminated means different things per button. For example, on the probe and windshield heat up here, we don't see anything because they are actually turned on. Like you can see right now, if I turn something off, we would get an indication. And on contrary to that, for the devices which are only temporarily going to be on, you get a blue or a cyan on indication when they're in use. So, there is three different conditions in flight that we need to consider. That is non-icing conditions, icing conditions, and ice accretion. So, let's talk about those. First of all, we have the non-icing conditions. That is basically what we're in at the moment. Remember, icing conditions can easily be defined by a temperature of 10 degrees centigrade or less and visible moisture. So, visible moisture includes things like fog, mist, rain, clouds, and so on, and a temperature of 10 degrees or less. Do note that for the 10 degrees or less, we take the true air temperature, TAT, into account, and not the static air temperature. So, going on from there, we have the first level, which is icing conditions. Now, icing conditions are basically defined as we've just said, but ATR goes on to say that icing conditions basically require a certain level of anti-icing. Now, we're about to enter some icing conditions over here, as the temperature is definitely low enough and we've got some visible clouds. So, let's take some preemptive measures as we need to do when we're expecting icing conditions. So, as we're about to enter some icing conditions, we are going to switch off the anti-icing system. Sorry, we're going to switch on the anti-icing system. So anti-icing is the panel that we find up here. And basically, whenever you're about to enter icing conditions, we switch on the propeller heat, the rudder, aileron, and horn anti-icing, and the side windows. So you're going to switch on those 5 up here. Now we are going to enter those icing conditions, and we see what happens. On top of those icing conditions, ATR has defined the condition of ice accretion, which is basically ice building up on your airplane. Now, for today's arrival, we will have to see if we're going to enter some, but chances are that we will, because it's a temperature of 9 degrees on the ground, but as you can see, currently it's minus 17 over here, and basically in the region of between 0 and minus 5 to minus 10 degrees centigrade. That is where the worst icing is going to happen, but it can happen in any other condition as well. So, your best indicator, if you have any icing, is the anti-ice probe, which unfortunately we don't have in this airplane, over here in the simulation, but you have the icing light located down here. Currently, we can see that AOA is illuminated, but I'm going to talk about that later. If you press the test button, you can see that the green icing light is going to come on, which is going to be your indicator that you are facing icing. Also, you can always just have a look at the wings, which you can very well see from the cockpit windows, and you can see if there is any ice building up on there as well. So, if we were to enter ice accretion conditions, so if ice was to build up on your airplane, then we would basically go ahead and do the following. We turn on the airplane de-icing system. Now, according to ATR, when we have ice accretion conditions, then we verify that the anti-icing system is on. That's the 5 buttons we have up here. On top of that, we confirm the mode selector in auto, which it is right now. And then we switch on the engine de-icing and the airframe de-icing. So we've got engine de-icing here and airframe de-icing over here. And that is what we are going to do. So that's what happens when you are actually picking up ice. Now, once we're leaving the ice accretion conditions, so once the airplane has stopped picking up new icing, we are going to switch the airplane back into the, let's call it permanent condition. So the de-icing is going to go off, the anti-icing is going to go off, and the probe and windshield heating is going to remain on. The same applies when there is no more residual ice on the airplane. So that is what we're going to talk about next. You have seen that we have the ice AOA light located down here, and we currently are showing icing AOA on the flight mode annunciator. Now, let's go ahead and cancel that for a second by pressing the button. And you will notice that when the airplane detects that we are flying through possible icing conditions, it is going to switch it back into icing AOA automatically. Now, we're about to enter some conditions over here again. Looking at the temperature, +1 degrees, we may or may not encounter the ice AOA message again. But let's talk about what that message actually does. And that is quite simple. It resets the low speed annunciations and the stick shaker logic for icing conditions. Basically, it means you have to fly a little bit faster. So, let's go over it for a quick tutorial again. We're about to enter some expected icing conditions as the temperature is less than 10 degrees and we've got some visible moisture outside. Expected icing conditions, probe and windshield heat verify on, and then we're going to turn on the 5 switches that we find up here. If ice was to build up on our airplane, we would turn on the engine and the airframe de-icers. Now, a quick word here as to what is an anti-icer and what is a de-icer. Basically, anti-icing means preventing ice from building up in first place, while de-icing means removing ice from the airplane. So basically, the anti-ice is used as a preemptive way to prevent ice from building up on the plane, and the de-icing is used in order to remove that ice if it has already built up. So we can see that the airplane has detected that we are within icing conditions. We see the icing AOA light coming on, and we can also see it on the top of the flight mode annunciator up here. And this is our indicator that we need to be careful if any ice was actually to build up on the airplane. Now, I would not rely entirely on the ice detector of the airplane, but have a quick look into the wing every now and then in order to verify if there is any icing building up. And that is basically how the anti-ice system of the ATR is used. There is one last condition that I want to talk about real quick, and that is the takeoff in ground icing conditions, but without atmospheric icing conditions. So you can see we've left all the icing conditions now, so we're going to switch the anti-ice off once again. But what would we do if there was snow on the ground, but the atmosphere itself was clear? If that was the case, then we would be switching on the propeller anti-ice, and after takeoff, we'd simply switch it off again. So, with icing conditions on the ground, but not in flight, you switch on the propeller anti-ice like this, and that's going to be it. Otherwise, if you're taking off in icing conditions on the ground and in flight, you would apply the normal icing conditions. So, finally, what there is to notice about the icing AOA light over here, when that is illuminated and you have left your icing conditions and you can verify that there is no more residual ice on the airplane, then you can press the ice button down here to reset the ice AOA light. So that's it about the ATR's de-icing and anti-icing procedures. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed this one. If you did, then do let me know in the comments below. If you really like what I am doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link that you can find in the video description below, or to welcome you as a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive early access to new videos before they're released for everyone else. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to welcome you all again, hopefully very soon.